the roof ends put in. Combination of screwing and nailing. Got these brackets over at Lowe's. I also got some brackets at Home Depot which are thinner, and but these from Lowe's are thicker. I put just enough screws in these that if I need to pop them off and reposition them, because again our actual peak is a little vague because of the way the wood cuts go. And on these pieces I did give us the 15-degree angle so we can get closer to the peak with that. I did all that before gluing those together, and of course there's screws and nails holding those together also. These boomerang shaped pieces, again, there's a lot of them, so there's a lot of stuff happening at this ridge, even though it's a multi-piece ridge without a single ridge beam. What I did pick up was an extra 12-foot 2x4 so that I could cap the bottom of this and have a continuous beam. So that's not going to go in until most of this is up, and I think I still need to nip the ends of it in order to get a fit. So that's not going to go up until everything's in. But I'll probably go the single 12-footer just to tie all that together. And then we'll put additional screws in here. The reason there's only one screw each way is I wanted a little wiggle factor, because these things can pivot and move as we get everything kind of positioned in. Over here, it's basically toe nailing, a lot of toe nailing. But when I built these spacer blocks and these top beams, these were prefabricated before coming out here, because I needed to minimize the amount of saw work off-grid. Now I could have done everything off-grid with a trailer. The thing is, there's a really steep hill getting to this location, which makes it, that enclosed cargo trailer is not coming up here. Basically, it's too risky to try and bring that thing up here off-road. We have gotten a couple of two-wheel drive vehicles up here, but it's really a two-wheel drive with the trailers kind of pushing it. And the slope is such that if I were even to bring that thing up with a 4x4, you know, I got a problem with crashing stuff around inside. So I prefabricated. Now, in theory, if we're building one of these cabins at another remote location, we just simply do prefabricate a lot of the parts in a valley and then bring them up here. But this glue's cured. I had to give it plenty of time to cure, about a week between the time I made the trusses and was actually putting these up. But with just toe nailing here, it's pretty stiff. And that's the thing I was worried about was the riser here. Now there's a lot of reinforcement on that. Hit a knot in the nail gun, you know, wouldn't want to go through that, so I'm just going to cut that off with a grinder. Somehow, some way, maybe it was with the guy holding the end, or somehow, some way, these ended up being cocked over a little bit. So I had to sledgehammer fit them back over. The thing is, I've got nails coming in, and then there's going to be sheathing, so I think there's going to be plenty of strength. So these, I didn't have to do any additional fitting. One thing I noticed though is with my spacing here, it was pretty carefully measured out. I assumed this was wide enough to go halfway on this, and it's not. So when I pre-made this as a spacer, it ended up being irrelevant. In the future, when we make these, I got to kick this over so that we fit the boards here, because everything else has the 2x4s turned this way, but at this side channel, it's turned like this. Installing the window is going to be a hassle because of the height involved, but fortunately we've got a kind of off-road capable forklift, so we can kind of raise a platform up here. We did bring scaffolding. One of the other guys had access to a bunch of the scaffolding. I don't want to screw with it if I can avoid it, but we may end up using the scaffolding to get roof panels on this side here. Definitely the longest dimension on this building is its height, so we're you know, I've just got to be careful working on the roof. But I'll be able to do, because of the shape of the way this works, I'll be able to do a lot of the work on this roof from the inside, just basically standing on a bucket. I also ended up with a bit more headroom than I expected, so this has been pretty good. Even if I bring that down a bit with some reinforcement, we're going to be just fine. But this is what the pre-made trusses look like. Now, I had made spaces here, had spaced these relatively evenly so I could put reinforcement here, because we do have some concerns about snow load. Everything here is looking so strong that I'm going to sheath it, and then we're going to kind of test a few things with strength. But I think I'm not going to end up putting spacers in all these spots. I think it'll be adding some unnecessary weight. It will add strength. And because I'm not going to build in the ceiling here yet, I'm going to take a look at it in a couple of months. And if, you know, there's a hint of any weakness in anything, then I'll put some in. But I think we're in pretty good shape here. Getting this end on is going to be a hassle because it's nowhere to stand, right? Because this is where the end of the loft is. What I've decided to do is put in about a 12-inch shelf coming back. I really don't need that wide of an area for a staircase coming up. I am going to put a window down there, so I'm going to pre-frame the top of the window but not the bottom. I'll show you that in another segment here, how that window framing works in anticipation of odd-sized windows. The corners here, I'd like a little reinforcement, but they are strong. Again, we had to do some hammer fitting to get this thing even enough to work with, but it'll work. A lot of it has to do with the fact that I was a little cheap to buy. That 4x4 was pretty reasonably priced. Over here, to get a 4x4 to go on this, not only was it going to be expensive, I felt I was going to do better with the two 2x4s glued together with the construction adhesive. So I think that was a good choice. In the future, I give a client the option of, you know, saying, well, here, it'll cost this much if we use 4x4s. It'll cost that much if we slap two 2x4s together. Try to use some coal lumber from Home Depot for shorter runs, okay, because it's $1 a piece for a 4-foot piece. So if you plan on cutting up an 8-footer a lot, you know, go to the coal lumber pile. You can find a lot of 4-foot 2x4s that are just $1 each, which is where a lot of that pressure treated came from. And if I've got the option of using that pressure treated on an indoor thing, why not? You know, it's going to last. It's going to outlast the regular lumber by a little bit. And if I, you know, had my choice, I'd just do the whole thing with pressure treated lumber. But you know, that increases the cost exponentially on the operation. So I'm working alone for a little bit till the helpers come back. And generally speaking, getting one of these things built is a 3-4 man job if you want to do it really, really efficiently. And if you've got one guy who really knows what's going on and one guy who's kind of okay as a carpenter, and then one, you know, a couple of guys that just kind of do what they're told, you're going to be fine. We figure that a 4-man crew, once we're geared up to build one of these at a location, you know, we could build more of them. So one of these is going to take 2-3 weeks, start to finish. 3 weeks, I think, for a comfort level. 2 weeks if, you know, and not everybody's working full time. But the thing is, 3 of them would only take one additional, I mean, each additional cabin is only going to take one additional week, because a lot of the work goes into prefabricating these parts. And when we prefabricate the parts, it's not the end of the world to just double or triple our production, let's say, on these roof trusses. And so that's one of the things. And the other thing for reducing initial cost is not buying windows. Like this window was framed in to match one that I got at a recycle place. And the other windows are standard size. We'll go into that in another video.